All right, good evening, members of council and administration, and also our guests, as well as those who are streaming from the comforts of home. Welcome to our meeting this evening. Roll call, all the members are present, but I believe Councillor Altenhoff is on personal leave. So with that, I'll call the meeting to order. So report out, closed meetings. We had a personal committee meeting that was held earlier this evening at 5:30 p.m. A portion of the meeting was held in closed session and reported out on at the open personal committee meeting. So with that, members of council, any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the agenda is presented to you this evening. Hearing none, we'll have that duly noted. We'll move on to the minutes. We have the minutes of the regular council meeting of October the 12th. The public council meeting also October 12th, 2021. That was the McLean-Hergot drain. And we had a special council meeting on October the 12th, 2021. Could I have a motion to adopt those minutes as presented? Deputy Mayor Bichetti and Councillor Jobin. On those minutes, any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. I believe we have no supplementary agenda items to deal with. So then we'll move right on to delegations. Member of council, and with us this evening, it gives me pleasure to welcome Leonardo Gill. He's the project manager with the City of Windsor, and it's on our Windsor Essex Community Safety Well-being Plan, as well as at some point, I would like to, before I call upon Mr. Gill, I'd like to call upon the Chief Administrative Officer to summarize a report and recommendation, but I'd like to bring that report forward, and then I'll have Mr. Gill deal with it. So anyway, there is a report.
You want me to move the report forward? I'll do that.
I've got Microsoft issues. I've lost my screen. Wait a second. Here we go. All right, I just had something interfering here. I couldn't see anybody. All right, Mr. Gill. And Mark, you've got the report?
Yes, Your Worship, if perhaps you can just bring the report forward, and Mr. Gill has a fulsome presentation. I think he'll cover off a lot of the report in his presentation. So with your indulgence.
Yeah, will do. So
Yeah.
I'd like to bring that report forward, and it's first on the CAO's report, the Councillor Jobin, and support Councillor Houston to bring the report forward. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Mr. Gill, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. And thank you, Sean, for putting the presentation on the screen. One second here. Okay, here we go. Today I will be walking you through the working draft of the CSWB plan to obtain your input and feedback prior to requesting the authorization of Essex County Council to approve the final plan on your behalf in November. And that is the basis of the report. And so as CAO Ms. Evans had indicated, I will be able to go through a fulsome discussion here through this presentation to inform your decision later on. Next slide, please. For the purposes of this presentation, I will be going over a brief recap of the project, provide a refresher on the regional priorities and opportunities that were established via engagement efforts, and spend the majority of my time discussing a high-level overview of the goals, initiatives, and activities of the plan. Please note that for your reference, I have also included the component parts of the Tecumseh appendix that will be found in the plan. These components are under the Tecumseh community profile, which are slides 18 to 22. At that point in time, I will be asking Sean to skip to slide 24 to discuss the next steps. And again, I will be providing a bit of an overview of what to expect as to those next steps. Next slide, please. So as you see in this project recap, our approach really used six different primary inputs to support the prioritization of the risk and protective factors that we've had found through our data analysis, but also to really narrow down the focus of not only our areas of focus, but also to develop the goals, initiatives, and activities that we'll be discussing shortly. But at the beginning, we started off with an environmental scan, and that was really comprised of an asset mapping activity, as well as the creation of a data report. The asset map, as you now know, is live. We were able to complete in consultation with 2-in-1 and our members of our regional systems leadership table, which I'll be noting as RSLT throughout the presentation. We were able to identify over 1,200 different community assets across the region. And again, we're able to visualize those through this interactive asset map that we completed. The data report was really a way to collate and review indicators for 7 risk and protective factor categories that we had identified. And that was through the creation of a data team that was really built out of the RSLT partner organizations. We reviewed publicly available data sources, and that informed our process of identifying those risk and protective factors. From there, the next phase of the project was municipal and sector engagement. On the municipal end, that allowed us to engage really in municipalities and inform them of the process, and not only through an information presentation that would have been, if you could believe it, last year, but we also had an update presentation and really an opportunity to provide feedback on the public consultation results that we had received, and we did that for each municipality in the region. Additionally to that, we engaged our regional CAOs table, the police services boards across the region, in addition to, of course, working alongside administration. And I would like to say thank you very much to Christina Hebert, as well as CAO Mark Misak-Evans, who've been a great partner at our leadership table, as well as throughout the planning process. From there, we also had our sector engagement. And as you may recall, in addition to the leadership table that's comprised of executive leadership from multiple different sectors, we also created an enhanced sector network. And what we meant by that, again, is really ensuring that we could contextualize the data and review the priorities through multiple lenses. So we engaged Indigenous communities, racialized persons, 2S LGBTQ+ folk, newcomers, youth, seniors, accessibility communities, and broader community groups. And through that process, we actually engaged them not only in contextualizing that information, but also through the recommendation setting to ensure that we had those voices included when we were considering the goals, initiatives, and activities of the plan. From there, we engaged in our public consultation efforts. And this was in order to make sure that we had that resident voice also driving that identification process. And we did that through a public survey, as well as virtual public meetings, 9 in total, 1 for each municipality and 2 for the city of Windsor. Through that process, we were able to have access to live closed captioning in multiple languages, including English, Spanish, French, and Arabic, and have those the survey translated in those languages as well, to try to reduce as many barriers as possible. We even established a teleconference meeting with seniors through Life After 50. From there, considering all of those different inputs, it helped us then narrow down the focus to understand what were the top priorities, not only for each municipality, but for the priorities for the region as a whole. And that allowed us to then cluster what we heard under 4 primary pillars, which I'll be discussing shortly, but those would be our areas of focus. From there, through a prioritization activity with the leadership table and the enhanced sector network, we were able to then, again, identify those goals, initiatives, and activities, and go towards establishing metrics of success for each of the activities that were identified. And of course, we've been writing the plan as well during this process. And we are still on track for a November submission, as we will discuss in the next step section. Next slide, please. One thing that I do like to point out, because of course this project has been extended a little bit because of COVID, and it's been a bit of a journey. But overall, throughout the course of this project, we've established 91 different virtual engagements, over 100 hours of engagement, and we're able to connect with over 1,900 stakeholders and residents to inform the plan. And I do like to make this point because as part of our team, one of the main pieces that we were trying to emphasize throughout this was to have as much meaningful engagement as possible and to reduce barriers to access. And that's the reason why we had those things like the live closed captioning, like having it with qualitative approaches as well as quantitative approaches. And to put these efforts into perspective, with respect to the City of Toronto, for instance, they engaged a total of 4,000 stakeholders through a combination of an online survey and their qualitative meetings. But they also have a population size that's approximately 7 times our population. So again, it really does put those numbers into perspective with respect to how much effort we did put towards ensuring that we were engaging as many people as possible, despite the circumstances and despite the obvious barriers to participation. Next slide, please. So due to that level of engagement, we were able to establish the following 4 areas of focus. This slide will be familiar to you as this was presented in I believe in our June presentation. But just to kind of summarize here, when we were reviewing, again, some of the information that was coming out of the qualitative discussions, out of the quantitative data, really under each of those pillars, there were some key themes that were very clear. For good governance and data, the emphasis was about reducing barriers amongst providers, really trying to break down silos that may exist naturally due to the way certain structures were established, but also really leveraging that silo busting that already is occurring. We have great collaboration across the region. I really want to emphasize that. And so it's really about seeing how we can work collaboratively with those existing leaders, existing committees, to really see how we can reduce those barriers even further. In addition to that, really emphasizing the importance of representation and inclusion at our governance level for the CSWB, and seeing how that can also inform consultation practices moving forward, because as you see, continual community engagement was something that was a priority. In addition to that, again, emphasizing the need of data, really understanding how we can collect data effectively across the region, by providing supports to not only local community organizations, but also to municipalities in terms of how we access data, how we analyze that information, and how we have mechanisms of collaboration around data. Under the engaged and safe communities, a really big emphasis here was about ensuring that we had access to affordable housing to keep people living and working in their communities. And again, to also be looking at how we can have supportive and transitional housing for those without. Another great deal of emphasis was given by community members to understanding that people feel safe in their communities, people feel comfortable in their communities when they're able to connect with their neighbors, with their community members through community spaces, through programming, but also through safe environments and opportunities like active transportation. And this is, again, really important to be looking at how we can then tie improving relationships with not only first responders like police, but also other organizations and institutions like local government with community members. Under the mental health and substance use support section there, great themes about improving system navigation to ensure that any door is the right door to providing service. And also really emphasizing that there's been some great work that's already been occurring in terms of emergency responses to those in crisis, especially from a co-response standpoint. And finally, for financial security and economic equity, really emphasizing the need to align and leverage existing supports, especially for those facing poverty or financial insecurity, and then looking at ways that we can establish targeted supports for systemically marginalized demographic groups and locations. Next slide, please. And actually, next slide, one more again, once again, thank you. And so again, considering those pieces, this led us to the development of these 8 goals and 17 initiatives. And if I were to summarize each of these sections here for good governance and data, you'll notice under the first 2 goals, it's really about establishing and improving our collaborative efforts to establish those mechanisms of collaboration that can help better improve decision-making through a review of data, of having that expertise from partner organizations that exist currently, but supporting them so that we again are reviewing better ways of approaching some of these acute issues and some of these challenges that may be facing our communities. But also, again, having this, ensuring that we have the support to be reviewing that important aspect of representation of priority populations and those lived experiences within that leadership table and those roles as well, to ensure that we are looking at including those voices and those lenses at the decision-making process, as well as at the partner level. From an engaged and safe community standpoint, again, there was great emphasis about seeing how we can partner with existing programs related to increasing safe and affordable housing in terms of access to that, but also to be really looking at some of the best practices that have been coming out of things like the Housing and Homelessness Master Plan and the great work that's being done at that level, to see how we can then improve upon advocacy efforts at provincial and federal levels. To ensure that there's that greater affordability, a more affordable housing through these different processes. And like I had mentioned beforehand about the promoting safe, healthy, and connected neighborhoods and communities, really emphasizing ways that we can look at promoting community-led programs and initiatives. Again, those are ways that we can tie the community to providing those the next steps of what is needed for community safety and well-being, and that is really ensuring that everyone has a role to play in that element of safety and well-being in a neighborhood or in a community. Under mental health and supports, another way to kind of summarize this piece is really looking at how we can build upon the great work that's being completed currently about convening, great partners to the table, to really see how we can then leverage that mental health service sector to promote effective communication related to destigmatization and mental health and addiction services and issues, as well as seeing again how we can advocate at higher levels of government where necessary. And a big piece here too, from many of the discussions that we had with first responders, was about ensuring that we can emphasize the great work that's being done from a co-response team standpoint, and see how we can have more sustainable funding at that level. And finally, from a financial security and economic equity standpoint, it's about seeing how we can maybe be creative on some of these aspects, build upon what exists there, but also see how we can utilize things like community improvement plans and community action plans to help with that targeting of economic development and workforce strategies in specific priority neighborhoods. So next slide, please. In this regard, I'm going to just break down just a few points very briefly, because I believe through that overview that I just provided, it gives you the gist of what these initiatives, goals, and activities are about. But again, something that I want to emphasize here at this level about looking at how we can have a permanent table for that CSWB partnership organization here. What's important to emphasize is that it's the recognition that we're not looking at duplicating work or adding a level of bureaucracy over top of committees and organizations that are doing great work. It's actually ensuring that we leverage those existing committees to work alongside them. And something that is important in that regard as well is that, of course, in terms of this plan, this is really a planning document as opposed to an implementation aspect of it, though we did move towards making sure that we detailed some aspects of implementation, but we really wanted to ensure council endorsement before detailing any specifics there, with respect to the, of course, that would be a municipal decision there to move this project forward. But as part of our relationship building, naturally, in our collaborative efforts, we have begun discussions on things like how to best leverage existing tables and secure commitments. And what's vitally important in that regard as well is that we have a great leadership table that is comprised of people who are at those leadership levels for organizations like WeCost, for organizations that work alongside collaboratives already. So again, that's an opportunity there for us to leverage those existing pieces to ensure that there's alignment with how our aspects here of our metrics and milestones, as well as our activities, are aligned with those groups. Next slide, please. And actually, I'm going to skip to, if you could skip to slide 12. Perfect. So one other aspect here was that we spoke with housing services and our planning departments, and also connected with our county leadership table members to see where there were opportunities that existed from an understanding of housing and understanding that this is a top priority for not only the municipalities within the region, but also across Canada and across Ontario. And so it was important for us to be looking at ways that we can leverage those existing mechanisms for again ensuring that information is out there so that individuals have access to that information, but also to ensure that we are looking at ways of seeing different pilot projects that have, for instance, best practices in mind for attainable housing. So this was a way for us to be engaging with those partners and ensuring again that we are considering the great work that's been completed through the Home Together Housing and Homelessness Master Plan, and really utilizing that plan by partnering with housing services. Next slide, please. And one piece here that I really like to bring up is in the conversations that we had with OPP, LaSalle Police, and Windsor Police, in addition to the frontline staff and first responders that we've been discussing this plan with, there was a great emphasis about seeing how we can look at utilizing the combined great knowledge and experience that we have through the creation of a regional crime prevention council. This is something that has that exists in different regions across Ontario, but something that is important here is to kind of formalize those aspects, again, to ensure that we can have that great level of support for any acute issues that might rise in a particular municipality. So it supports multiple municipalities across the region, not just in one particular area. And again, like I mentioned beforehand, these are conversations that have been started. Of course, we would need to look at how that, the framework of that and whatnot. But the great piece of this was that all of our partners there were excited about engaging in that process and seeing how we can move that forward. Next slide, please. And once again, as an example here in terms of the promotion of de-stigmatization of mental health and addiction services. This is incredibly important, especially when we're considering the level of access that would be needed from a county perspective as well. As we've seen through our conversations that there's a clustering of services in Windsor as opposed to other areas within the county and within Tecumseh as an example as well. So it's about seeing how we can, again, leverage different campaigns that may be able to raise awareness of those pieces that are available, but also, maximize the usage of things like the CSWB asset map and seeing how we can, again, improve that as a way to ensure that more people have a better understanding of what's available and what's out there. Next, actually, I'll have you skip to slide 17, please. And so one other piece here that I wanted to bring up with respect to that leverage, expand, or develop target economic development and workforce strategies is really emphasizing that there are some great community improvement plans and community action plans that are available within each municipality across the region. And something that's important is to see how we can maybe look at ways to leverage that and again, align it with different opportunities that may be from a social procurement policy approach. And again, this would be a bit of a discussion there in terms of seeing whether or not it would be helpful and effective in each municipality. But considering that there would be ways of seeing how we can align some of those existing supports to maximize local benefits is something that we found was through our discussions there, a very intriguing approach to be moving forward on and to be considering. So next slide. Oh, so as I was indicating with respect to slides 18 to 23, these slides would have been something that you've seen in previous presentations related to the community profile. So as such, I will move to slide 24. Thank you. And I do really appreciate Sean for jumping around this slide deck so much. I thank you for that. With respect to the next steps, really, as indicated in the report, that we would be asking to see how we could, again, authorize or delegate the approval, of the final plan to Essex County Council. The logic behind here is that this is really in alignment with the joint city-county approach that we've taken from the start, really about looking at how we identified regional priorities and strategies. And furthermore, we even discussed this with the Ministry of the Solicitor General to see whether or not this was something of a practice that had occurred in previous municipalities or in other municipalities for this type of a plan, and that was found to be the case. So for instance, there were plans where the upper tier municipality, because of the approval approaches, was the most appropriate municipality to kind of deal with these joint types of plans. So it was also an acknowledgement of the logistical challenges of a multi-council approval process. So ministry staff had indicated that the delegation of approval to an upper tier municipality, or in this case, the county, would be sufficient if key stipulations were satisfied. And those stipulations were that all lower tier municipalities were involved in the planning process. And as you recall, we engaged with each municipalities about 3 times. We engaged with the CAO table. We also created a regional communications team to ensure that we got the information out there. The second stipulation was that the delegation of authority is provided by council resolution, and that's the purpose of the request today and the purpose of the presentation. But also, just to let you know, currently Lakeshore, Leamington, Essex, Amherstburg, and I believe LaSalle have delegated that authority to the county. And finally, that the plan is published and available at all partnering municipalities. And that, of course, is the intent, that we would be printing this plan and having it available at each municipality. So currently, our project team is in a position to meet all the stipulations. And again, further, we do intend to make this regional plan available to each area municipality and other locations as appropriate. So if that were to move forward, then the next steps would be that we would present to City and County Council on November 15th and 17th. And from there, we would be submitting the plan to the Ministry of the Solicitor General. And finally, based off of legislation, there is a 30-day window for us to be printing and posting the plan online. With that, I will end the presentation and thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Gill. And it's hard to believe that the magic hours is upon us, like in the project. But it's good to see that you know, it's coming to an end, and with a bit of time to spare. So, which is kudos to the whole group that have worked so hard in bringing this. You know, this, I think, very important step for community safety within not only our municipality, but certainly throughout the region. So I'll open it up to questions and certainly at this time or comments. Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Mr. Gill. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's really a lot in there. And I know just the snapshots from our community, I think, I don't know how I would best describe them, but I see a lot of traffic. I don't see a lot of housing or just, I get, you know, I struggle sometimes with the intent of the community safety and well-being plan as to whether it's improving someone's life or is it protecting us from one another. And I guess I kind of struggled throughout all the different the lead up to today as to what are we, what is our community looking for? Or, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but what are the residents of Tecumseh looking for from a safety plan? Is it something like I'm coming up short, and I'm wondering if you've given some thought to that.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, again, that's a great point to make in terms of, how does this, to summarize, and hopefully I'm summarizing this correctly, but how in some ways, how does this affect the Tecumseh resident? How do we consider that in the grand scheme of things with respect to the regional priorities as well? And I will say that with respect to the housing and neighborhoods piece, we did find that key aspects of affordable and attainable housing in our survey, for instance, was considered a top priority across the entire region for each municipality, including Tecumseh. But through the discussions as well with residents from Tecumseh, I think there's a great piece here about looking at how we can be preventative on aspects and how we could also be considering social development. That's really in line with what the CSWB philosophy is, and and kind of the major tenets of the plan. And so to clarify that point a little bit there, is that really, I think when discussing specifically from a housing perspective, how that works with Tecumseh is really there was an emphasis on saying, you know, there was, how do I put this, that for many people, we wanted to make sure that their children and their families can stay within the communities and are not priced out from a housing perspective there. And this was something that we heard actually across the county as well, as being able to maintain, able to live and play within their communities that they also may work in. Now, again, when it comes down to some of those aspects there, we are looking at from the key elements of the plan itself, we are looking at ways to improve communications of some things related to housing, affordable housing, and access to housing in that regard. But also, I think we're looking at ways of supporting lifestyle with respect to some of these areas, and ensuring that there are opportunities for those activities and opportunities to engage with one another in the community from a more of a neighborhood level aspect there. Hopefully that lead to some of your, was that able to answer some of your questions there? Or would you like me to follow up?
Well, no, you know what? Thank you for that. Yeah, you know, I wonder if there's an element there, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this as to whether, you know, whether we know how, whether collectively as a community, we know how to achieve those goals. I mean, one of the things that I witness, you know, keeping an eye on what people are telling me or just saying in the community is that, you know, they, on one hand, the affordability issue is raised, but then at the same time, there's opposition to new development and new supply and intensification. And so it's tough, or more traffic, because that's I guess you know, as you know, as representative of the community, I certainly want to do my best, and it's like it's a struggle between both of these poles, because, you know, I feel the way to improve the affordability is to add supply and to ensure that we can offer people places to live. But I don't know how, like, because there's no control of the market, but then, you know, when these kinds of initiatives come up, there's a fair amount of pushback on them, and it's an ongoing struggle. I don't know if I don't think we're unique in that, but I just wonder if there was if that came out in your consultations as to whether, you know, that's a real issue to address. Is that education? Is that or is there something that I'm missing as to how to make housing more affordable absent an addition of supply?
Thank you, Councillor. And so again, actually, though, that was something that we heard quite a bit. The same sentiment, I think, is that when we're considering when you consider at the beginning of the CSWB development across the province, what we were talking about here is tackling some really complex, very complicated social challenges that also obviously did not begin overnight and likely will not be able to end overnight. But I think what was key here was developing the appropriate mechanisms to deal with that with a lens of prevention and, again, social development, as opposed to reactionary lenses of crisis response or crisis intervention. So in other words, looking at how we can actually work collaboratively to understand better ways and better practices through, again, the use of better data, for instance, as an example here, to be able to look at some of these challenges from more of a proactive approach and preventative approach, as opposed to reactionary. Because when we look at some of the reactionary aspects, we find that there is obviously an immense burden on the system in general from a cost analysis standpoint, but also with the fact that people can fall through the cracks. From a housing perspective, that might mean an individual is unable to retain housing, to maintain housing, right? And they fall through the cracks that way. So again, some of these complex issues really involve us considering it not just solely from a housing perspective, but also if you want to think of it from a mental health perspective, perhaps in terms of supporting, retaining, and maintaining housing. Or in addition to that, if we're looking at it from a planning perspective, ensuring that we're planning our communities in a way that recognizes the need, as you had indicated previously, about looking at how there could be a balance there between increasing the housing, the available housing, and also looking at ways that you can have mixed income housing to support that those individuals that may be on the spectrum with respect to different or a sliding scale with respect to that income level. And that is something that is a complicated question for all of our communities and across the province as well. But I think the way that we get to that is through things like our data consortium that we're promoting as part of the good governance and data piece there in terms of that initiative, so that we can ensure that we are using more appropriate data pieces to help us with those decision-making processes. And also why, again, we're including aspects of how we consult with the community so that we're not looking at symptoms of larger issues, and we are looking at, in the case of individuals that may be experiencing specific challenges or are more likely to experience harm, that their voices are also included in that process. So again, I think there are aspects here that we are looking at how we develop a better system of collaboration and a system of collaboration that considers quantitative and qualitative data to inform steps moving forward. And so I hope that helps with some of the clarity on that piece. It's really about developing that mechanism there.
Okay, thank you very much.
I just want to add to that, Mr. Gill, and going back to about, now 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when I was involved about 5 or 6 years on the FPAC committee, which is the Building Towards a New Police Services Act, and under the previous government. And part of the foundation of that was community safety plan, and which was kind of unheard of here in Ontario. And there was a model in Saskatchewan. It was called a hub model, and kind of the same principle of what we're doing here right now. And there was one in particular in Prince Albert, where there was the policing, and when all of the communities got together, all the different stakeholders, and a lot of it was on social services, housing, policing, schools, and they basically looked at the community and what was a city with high crime rate, and it was basically how can we make our city a better place? And so the hub model was there. I see some similarities in terms of the community safety plan, because for years and years, those are good points in terms of the Councilor Dowie brought up yourself about the housing piece. What's the domino effect from that? And all of the various stakeholders that you brought together and everybody brought together at the table always operated in silos. And a lot of information, as you talk about quantitative and qualitative, data being built, very difficult when you are operating in those particular silos in that. And I see the merits now, the good points you in your presentation about the policing piece. It's not just about putting handcuffs on folks and marching them on to jail and certainly so forth, but it's trying to dig down to the root cause of the root problems within the community. And with all of these groups coming together, it's trying to find the right solution in terms of making our community much safer. And this is the exciting part, I think, of and I think the Ministry of Attorney General is in the right frame of mind to do this. At first, we all thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be so much work. It's going to be, and so forth. Yes, there's no doubt it has been. And but once the foundation is laid and we break those silos and start working together, not only within our own neighborhoods, but beyond that, community, and so forth, then we come to realize, wow, we've got a lot of similarities. How can we make things much, much better and so forth? I see this as a real sound foundation piece, and I'm certainly looking forward to, when we bring this up to our county council and then start building the walls now that the foundation's been laid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Questions, comments, members of council? I want to first extend my thanks to you as kind of the nucleus, but certainly Marg and our local team, Christina and all of them that have added so much to the discussions and to all the communities that were certainly involved in it. So I want to extend my thanks to them, and most importantly, our citizens, the 1900 and all of those meetings that we've had, and all of those various groups and stakeholders that have come forward, and that's how you build communities. And I think we really did it right. I think regionally, collectively, because we share in so many of those silos, and now we're all part of it. And so I think the end result is going to be very good for our community. Marg, you want to bring that report forward? And
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly do. I won't go through in the detail because Leo has done a superb job of that this evening for you. I do support the recommendation to upload, I guess, the approval authority to the County of Essex by the Town of Tecumseh Council, and that's recommended in our report. I think it has been a very regional strategy. It's going to continue to be regional in its implementation. Leo and his team have been well supported, I think, by all of the jurisdictions and all of the members on the regional leadership table. I've been privileged to be a member of that. Special thanks to Christina, who's been our data point person and all things community safety and well-being plan for the last couple of years, being very supportive of the whole initiative. And we'll carry on with our part of implementation. But as you can see from what Leo has presented this evening, many of the services are beyond the jurisdiction of the municipality. And so it will require working with the upper tier. It will require working with community agencies and other levels of orders of government to implement. So we have a big task ahead of us, but I think we've, as the mayor put it, we've laid a solid foundation. So with that, my recommendation is to receive the report and Mr. Gill's presentation, as well as to approve the Windsor Essex Regional Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and any subsequent reports as required be delegated to the County of Essex on behalf of the Town of Tecumseh.
all right, and there you have it. Moved by Councilor Tonio, supported by Councilor Jobin. Any further discussions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried unanimous. And so thank you to administration and certainly to you, Mr. Gill. And then we'll see you sometime in, I think, November 17th at the county.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone.
You too. Take
Leo.
care. All right, members of council, we'll move on to communications for information. We have 7 items here. If I could have a motion to receive. Councilor Jobin, Councilor Houston, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Any items that you would like to bring forward? There's 2 that I think we need to look at. One of them from the town of LaSalle. That's the Regional Affordable Housing Strategy Review of Social Housing Cost Sharing Agreement. This is something that County Council has brought forward and to the city. Since obviously we just talked about it and under the community safety plan on affordable housing and within the communities and so forth. Looking to support Town of LaSalle's recommendation to support Essex. And the 4th one is Municipality of Leamington, and that's the long-term care, basically for the funding and basically putting a level playing field between private and certainly the public long-term care. and making sure that the right amount of dollars that because we've seen under the pandemic, the struggles, most of our loss of life have come from long-term care facilities. And it's going to take resources and certainly to rebalance, I think, between the public and private sector. And so if I would like a recommendation that 1 and 4, if the indulgence of council to support those two.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and support Councilor Tonio. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you very much. Committee minutes. The first is Tecumseh Accessibility Advisory Committee, October 14th. I have motion to receive. Councilor Jobin, Councilor Dowie. Any questions or comments? Yes, go ahead, Councilor Jobin.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, to Laura. In that meeting, we did have a number of inquiries in reference to some pedestrian pathways along 42 and some construction works that we were going to have Phil or Kirby get back to some of the members of that committee. Can that information get back to them prior to the next committee meeting? Just because it is so, the meetings are quarterly and so far away and really undetermined. If we could just get that information to them expedited, is that possible?
Through your worship to Councillor Jobin, yes, we will get that information to the committee members. I know we've already responded on one of the matters, so we'll follow through on the additional matters that you mentioned.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you. And the second one is the Special Police Services Board, October 6th meeting. If I have a motion to receive those minutes. Deputy Mayor Bichetti and Councilor Tonio. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. We've dealt with item 1, the Chief Administrative Officer's approval of Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Move on to the Corporate Services and Clerk. We have the Corporate Services 2021-28 request for noise bylaw exemption, the County of Essex construction activities on County Road 42. So I'll call upon our Director of Corporate Services and our clerk to summarize the report and bring the recommendation forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report has been prepared based on a request from the County of Essex for an exemption from the town's noise bylaw to perform various construction operations, including sewer water main improvements, as well as concrete and asphalt and pavement on County Road 42 from County Road 19 to the City of Windsor limit. Their exemption request does not apply to pile driving, cofferdam construction, or crushing operations. And the main purpose for the exemption is to minimize disruption to daytime traffic and commercial businesses operating in the area for a period of approximately 10 weeks, sometime between the time period of March 1st and November 30th of 2022. The exemption is being requested for the entire construction duration to allow the contractor some flexibility in scheduling the times to complete the construction works. So in accordance with our noise bylaw, sounds resulting from the operation of equipment in connection with construction is prohibited between the hours of 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. in residential, agricultural, and commercial areas. The noise bylaw also allows for exemptions to be requested from members of the council. So accordingly, this report has been presented to council to seek an exemption from the noise bylaw as requested from the County of Essex for between March 1st and November 30th of 2022 in order to permit these construction works along County Road 42. And if there is any concerns expressed from any of the area residents or businesses, we will certainly monitor those concerns.
Okay, any questions or comments? The only comment I would make is to make sure that there's ample notice to the residents on 42. All right, a motion. Moved by Councilor Tonio, Councilor Dowie, support. All in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Thank you. Move on to the, again, the corporate services, municipal and school board elections method of voting. So I'll call upon our director of corporate services and our clerk to summarize the report and recommendations.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the next municipal and school board elections will take place on October 24th of 2022. Since the 2018 elections, the province has made some changes to the Municipal Elections Act that relate to the method of voting and the timing of the elections. In particular, there's a shorter time between the first day for nominations being May 1st, 2022, or for next year, it's actually May 2nd, the Monday. Nomination day, August 19th, 2022, and election day being Monday, October 24th, 2022. They've also removed the ranked ballot provisions under Bill 2018, and the requirement to pass a bylaw to allow for alternate voting methods was extended from May of this year to May of next year. So the municipal clerks are responsible for conducting the elections in a manner that adheres to certain principles that the courts may give consideration to under the Act. And we've outlined those in the report in somewhat detail, but they relate generally to secrecy and confidentiality, being fair and non-biased, access to the voters, integrity of the process, certainty of the results, voter candidates being treated fairly and consistently, as well as the voters, and proper majority vote governed by ensuring that valid votes are counted. So there are several methods to conduct municipal elections or combinations thereof, and those would be the traditional paper ballot, vote by mail, internet, and telephone voting. And we've provided in the report a summary explaining each of those voting methods. Alternate voting methods were the most common methods of voting in the province in 2018. Nearly 3/4 of the municipalities used either internet, phone, or mail-in voting. Of those, 178 local governments used internet and phone voting as their preferred as their voting methods. And mail-in ballots actually dropped by 46%, and that likely, according to AMO, reflects a move to a method that is safe from postal strikes. So since 2003, Tecumseh has been using alternate voting methods of either vote by mail or internet and telephone voting. And most recently in the 2014, the 2016 by-election, and in 2018, internet and telephone voting were used. And we summarized in Appendix 2 of the reports the voter participation and some of the impacts that may have affected those turnouts. So in keeping with Section 242 of the Municipal Elections Act, we are presenting this report to Council for direction on preparing a bylaw that authorizes the alternative voting methods of internet and telephone voting. And subject to Council's approval, we'll be also establishing procedures prior to June 1st of next year in accordance with the Act. We recognize that each election is unique. However, in 2022, we know that elections will have some special considerations, unlike previous elections, given the COVID pandemic and the possibility of interruptions in the voting process due to the potential for new waves of the virus or other health concerns. In addition, we also have to be cognizant of ensuring that the election process is accessible for all voters and complies with the Accessibilities for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. So we've also listed in the report a number of benefits of the internet and telephone voting methods. And we note that in particular, they are convenient for voters, and voters can cast their ballot privately and independently during the 10-day voting period, 24 hours a day up until 8 p.m. on election day. It encourages voter participation as voters don't have to go to a physical location to cast their ballot, and it provides for additional voter opportunities for voters such as students or persons that are out of the country to vote, and it supports the change to demographics and lifestyles. Both of these methods are accessible and are compatible with assistive devices, and voting proxies are eliminated. Internet or telephone voting is most commonly used with internet, and it provides for flexibility, convenience, along with the ability to cast votes anytime, anywhere with an internet connection or landline or mobile device. and it also eliminates long lineups at the polls. Election results are provided faster and more accurately, and the number of staff is significantly reduced as compared to other voting methods. We will be establishing voter information centers as we have in the past at the local nursing homes. In addition to, there will be a voter information center established at the town hall to assist electors with being added to the voters list, addressing any concerns or questions, and to assist them with the voting process if necessary. We'll also have computers, iPads, and telephones available to those who need assistance. And we will also, as in the past, be extending the town hall hours to accommodate those that cannot attend during regular business office hours. So there is a funding in the 2022 budget for the municipal elections, and subject to the direction of council this evening, we will issue a request for proposal for internet and telephone voting. And we will provide further information to council as part of the 2002 budget process. So this report, it does recommend that internet and telephone voting be approved for the 2022 municipal and school board elections, and that authorization be given to prepare a bylaw to provide for these alternate voting methods at the next regular meeting of council. And I'm open to any questions that council may have.
All right, any questions or comments on Councilor Dowie, move report, or,
Yeah, actually, I'll move through.
and I'll come back to you if you have a question. Moved by Councilor Dowie, Councilor Houston, support. Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. Just, I'm more of a comment than a question. I appreciate that the clerk brought forward not only the proposal to continue, but also all the new factors that are part of our life today that impact on the accessibility of our voting. Having the ability to vote at home over a period of several days improves the ability for people to vote. Having both the phone and the internet option offer alternatives for those who don't have technology, but also helps facilitate even assistance without a whole lot of paperwork and having to fill out forms and things like that. So honestly, I do not want to go back to less convenient methods of voting. I feel this is the best possible way to encourage people to vote, and to make an honest effort to choose a council that best reflects them. So very happy to support this once again, and to bring internet and phone voting back to our residents for 2022.
All right, thank you, Councilor Dowie. Any further questions or comments? Councilor Houston.
Thank you. And I'll echo some of Councilor Dowie's comments. I think given the impact of the pandemic and technology available to us today, we've had 3 elections now, which have worked very well, and happy to see this continue. So I'm happy to see and happy to support this for the upcoming election. And I can't believe we're a year away, under a year away at this point. So
Time flies when you're having fun. So with that, members of council, no further questions or comments. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries unanimous. All right, thank you. We'll move on to the business process optimization review. That's also from our clerk. She'll bring that report, our Director of Corporate Services and Clerk, to summarize the report and recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the town recently undertook an organizational review, and as part of that report that came out from KPMG, the consultant retained to conduct the organizational review, there were a number of recommendations in that report, one of which was to conduct a business optimization service delivery review of the clerk's services. So we have issued an RFP and awarded the contract, and the funding for the contract to conduct the business optimization review for the clerk's services will be funded, or proposed to be funded, in part using $25,000 under the professional fee other that was intended to be used for the records management report. That report or that project was deferred pending the outcome of the service review. And as a result, we're suggesting that those funds be reallocated to the business optimization review, and that the balance of the funds that were approved by council at the last meeting with regards to the use of the municipal modernization funds also be applied towards this business optimization study as well. So the recommendation in this report is that the $25,000 allocation in the Clerk's Department 2021 operating budget under professional fee other be applied to the Clerk Services Business Optimization Review Project.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Questions or comments on the report? I hear none, then the wish of council. Moved by Councillor Houston, support Councillor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I'll move on to fire services. I've got Fire 2021-07 firefighter radio enhancement. I'll call upon our chief to summarize the report and bring a recommendation forward.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to the members of council. As council is aware, the community safety radio system is operated under contract with Kelcom Radio Systems, with a fixed rate being charged for each radio in use. The report presented tonight is to provide information regarding a service enhancement for the Community Safety Department that would provide a radio to each firefighter. Earlier in 2021, Kelcom offered the town additional portable radios at a deeply discounted price in order to provide a radio for each firefighter on the department. We purchased the radios and agreed to activate them on a trial basis on the system under the existing contract. Historically, the firefighters have operated with one radio being available for each team of 2 or 3 firefighters for interior operations in hazardous conditions. Numerous investigations into firefighter injuries and fatalities have shown that the one key reason those happen is that communication with the team is disrupted. It is easy to see that if only one firefighter in a team has a radio, that if that firefighter becomes separated or otherwise incapacitated, that the communication for the entire team could be cut off. Provision of a radio for each firefighter is the most reliable way to ensure this does not occur. We're asking tonight for council's consideration of the report as presented, with the recommendation being that the additional funding in the amount of $9,360 excluding HST be referred to the 2022 budget deliberations as part of the community safety operating budget. I'm available for questions if there are any.
All right, thank you, Chief Bondi. Questions or comments to the chief? Hearing none. Moved by Councillor Houston. Support Councillor Dowie. All in favor? Opposed, if any of that is carried. Thank you, Chief. Yeah, so I know that I just received a message from Councillor Tonio. His internet went down on the whole street, and so he's having difficulty coming back on. He's going to continue to try to log on. Okay, we'll move on to Parks and Recreation Services, PRS 2021-14 Strategic Master Plan for Parks Recreation Services. There's a 5-year update adoption, so I'll call upon our Director of Parks and Recreation, Mr. Anthony. Summarize the report and recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor McNamara and members of council. Tonight's report, you recall at the September 28, 2021 regular council meeting, the members received a presentation from Bezair Partners, their consultant that conducted the 5-year Parks and Recreation Master Plan review. The consultant provided a summary of the review that consisted of the parks and trail inventory and asset valuation, the community consultation, benchmarking, and review of recommendations from the 2010 master plan, and recommendations and implementations. As council recalled that evening, this report or this updated plan was not to replace the existing master plan, but was actually to enhance it and to update some of the items that were on it that were completed. Items such as splash pads, the updating of Lakewood Park, McAuliffe Park, a few of those parts were in the original plan, have been taken care of, and now we have some new recommendations as well. So a summary of the recommendations and implementations, the strategies are attached in attachment number 1. And as a result of it, we're looking for the Parks and Recreation Report, PRS 2021-14, regarding the Strategic Master Plan for Parks and Recreation Services, 5-year review adoption be received. And that the recommendations and implementation strategies included in the Strategic Master Plan for Parks and Recreation Services 5-year review as presented at the regular council meeting of September 28th, 21 be adopted. And further, that administration be directed to include operation and capital development initiatives in future municipal forecasts for council's consideration as outlined in the Strategic Master Plan for the Parks and Recreation Services 5-year review. I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Questions or comments on the report? Deputy Mayor Buchetti?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Anthony, just a question. This master plan, would this be considered a working document in terms of updating as things get done? Or is it just, it sits there, then, in 5 years we review it? The reason I ask is an example. I know Weston Park is abutting a property that may be developing, residential, commercial in that one area, and that park may benefit by some kind of enhancement and an expansion. How would that be included in this overall master plan if something like that were to occur in the next 2 years there for development?
Through the mayor to the deputy mayor, these plans are set out and they're always ongoing. So there are things that do surface during the life of the plan. I mean, that plan doesn't mean that that's what you have to stick to. There are things that come up. A prime example is the explosion of pickleball over the last number of years. It wasn't in our original master plan done in 2010, nor was the disc golf. However, both of those amenities became very popular, and Tecumseh stepped forward and we included those in our capitals and move forward with those projects. So if further developments do become available or do come forth in that area, certainly the plans will be incorporated in and brought back to council for their consideration for any new amenities that would be, thought of or implemented at that time.
Very good.
Yeah, and I would add too, with the development charges as well, that would be collected on that development would certainly could be in lieu of, cash in lieu of, because already park is there. So I think there's future opportunities just to add to certainly that park. Councilor Dowie?
Thank you, Worship. And I believe Mr. Anthony did answer my question, but I just want to just make sure I'm on the right page. So the existing 2010, 2011 plan remains intact. Anything that is, still unfinished from that plan remains as a goal of the municipality. And then this is appending to it and creating new initiatives to follow those or to be done in concurrence with them. It's just, I wanted to just be sure about that.
Yes, again, through the mayor to Councilor Dowie, that is correct. The original master plan stays in as adopted by council, and there's some outstanding amenities or directions in that report that haven't been completed yet. They're still on the books to be completed. This was an update, as we know, as things evolve through the years, new amenities, new activities come forth, new requests. We've tried to address that in the new recommendations that have come forth in the update. And originally in the presentation as well, Mr. Bezier is recommending that the town undertake a full, complete master plan review, or not review, a new updated master plan within the next 5 years to meet what's going on and what comes from the future. I hope that answers your questions. There isn't really a list of priorities as far as numbers, but they all are there to come forth as we can. Some of them are restricted depending on the finances, the dollars that we have, grant opportunities, etc. So some smaller ones maybe jump ahead of some of the large ones. And again, a lot of that's depending on funding and the opportunities at the time.
Yes, thank you. Supplementary, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor?
go ahead, Councilor Dowie.
Yeah, thank you. Through to Mr. Anthony, just more for, I guess, for longer term or for just interest, seeing the development of this over the last number of years. Will the raw comments that were provided from residents be made available as part of the finalization of the plan as presented, or are they going to remain as internal files?
The document that we received this evening is AODA compliant, and that will be on the internet accessible. The other plans, yes, are accessible through a request to the town, and we can certainly give the comments back to the residents. The summary sheet, I believe, was report number 2.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions or comments to Mr. Anthony? Hearing none, then council's wish. Move the report, Councillor Houston and Councillor Dowie. All in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Okay. For B, again, Tecumseh Special Events 2022. I'll call upon our Director of Parks and Recreation Service to summarize the report and recommendation.
Once again, Mayor McNamara, members of council, this report addresses special events for the year 2022. As council is aware, we do a large number of events throughout the year, small events, large events, Canada Day, Christmas in Tecumseh, up to the 3-day event, the Corn Festival. In 2021, a mayor's task force was appointed to commence planning of the town's 100th anniversary, and it was to be celebrated over 3 days, July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2022. Planning has begun with the goal of providing various events throughout the Tecumseh community with an emphasis on encompassing the rich history and beautiful features of our town. Again, annually, the town's community and recreation services staff organize a number of town events, and one of them is the Tecumseh Corn Fest, which is held normally in August. However, it's been canceled the last couple of years due to COVID-19 pandemic and associated limits on social gatherings. Following on the last Corn Festival in 2019, council directed staff to undertake consultations on Corn Festival programming, which was done and reported to council in the spring of 2020. And that was PRS 2020-09. As a planning organization and coordination and presentation of the town's 100th anniversary event will take up substantial staffing resources as well as financial support. We're recommending that this 3-day event planned as the town's 100th anniversary celebration be the town's major event for 2022. It is also recommended that the staffing resources and the financial support normally provided for the Tecumseh Corn Festival be reallocated to this event and be considered and be reallocated to this event, and be considered for approval during the 2022 budget. With the recommendation to reallocate the Corn Festival staffing resources and financial commitment to the town's 100th anniversary celebration in 2022 budget, the Tecumseh Corn Festival will be considered again during the 2023 budget deliberations. Input received during the consultation undertaken following the 2019 event will be factored in at that time. The recommendation that report number PRS 2021-16 regarding the Tecumseh Special Events 2022 be received, and that the town's 100th anniversary celebration planned for July 2022 be approved as the town's major event for 2022 in place of the Tecumseh Corn Festival, with consideration of costs referred to the 2022 budget deliberations. And further, that administration be directed to defer the Tecumseh Corn Festival to 2023 with consideration for resuming the event during the 2023 budget deliberations. I'm open for any questions from council.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anthony. Councilor Tonio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. More of a comment, just as a member sitting on the mayor's task force for the 100th anniversary. I just want the council to know and citizens to know that are watching that it is going to be a great event. It's going to be a great weekend. So, you know, some people are worried that we're going to lose a Corn Fest this year, but we're gaining this 100th anniversary where we're going to celebrate Sandwich South, St. Clair Beach, and Tecumseh, and how we've come together over the last 100 years to make today what it is today. So just want to make everybody aware that it's going to be a great event, and just like the Corn Fest, it'll be full of activities throughout the day and night, and it's a good replacement, and I support the recommendation.
So you're prepared to move it?
That's 10-4.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Any further questions or comments? Yes, Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. Through to Mr. Anthony. In years past, when we've had a lot of consultation over the Corn Festival, one of the items that had come up was our contract with the carnival, and that if we didn't commit early enough in advance, we may lose our date. I wonder if you can share whether that threat remains, that if we don't have the Corn Festival this year, another event may scoop it up and not be able to return to us. I guess that's kind of question number one. And question number two is a bit more about the branding. I guess when I read what's published about 100th anniversary, it certainly implies that it's the 100th anniversary of the municipality as it is consisted today, rather than the former town of Tecumseh that existed up until the turn of the century. And I'm wondering, how is that distinction going to be made as part of these celebrations? Because I know we're a united municipality, and we all chose, or at least the majority of residents chose the name Tecumseh back in the late 90s. But it's certainly, we're a new municipality and we're 22 years old, in reality. So I guess I didn't want anybody to feel left out by what appears to be a branding that it's the same municipality as constituted today.
So if I may, through Mayor McNamara, to Councillor Dowie to address the first question. I really don't have an answer for you at this time, Councillor Dowie. The festival and event world for the last 2 years has been shut down, basically. I'm not even sure if some of the supporting companies that attended a lot of the festivals have survived through this. That won't know until they come out the other side. So I couldn't commit to confirm whether, yes, that would be the case or not. It may allocate rebranding of the festival or whatever, but I just couldn't commit to that this time. There's too many unknowns in the industry.
Yeah, just to the comment to Councilor Dowie, when the city of Windsor celebrated their 150th anniversary, they had the same issue. Walkerville, Sandwich West. They were all at different times. They celebrated because they came together as a municipality. The basis of it was certainly Windsor. I certainly don't want to get into the weeds on that particular issue, but our namesake, yes, we certainly chose Tecumseh as a namesake to incorporate one municipality. So we want to share in the enrichment of those communities of St. Clair Beach and Sandwich South that have been incorporated within the amalgamated community, and share our rich history and certainly our heritage. And so many municipalities, big centers, the city of Toronto, on theirs with their amalgamated communities, I guess they're faced with the same situation we're faced with here in Tecumseh, and no different. The LaSalles of the worlds and with what was left of Sandwich West went to the city, to LaSalle in 1992, I believe, amalgamated Amherstburg, Leamington, the rest of them. I think we're all in that same predicament as we move forward. So, but it's there to make sure, and And I think if we look at our town crest, I think we showcase that. We showcase, obviously, Tecumseh, the face of Tecumseh, but if I got the emblems right on your screen, and you got the sailing on Lake St. Clair, which is St. Clair Beach, and then the wheat, which is the farm community within Sandwich South. So, as we say, we're proud of our past and confident in our future. Margaret.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, just to assist with this, Councillor Dowie, the Mayor's Task Force, particularly through Mayor McNamara, has taken great pains to ensure that the task force is representative of all three former communities and that the events are going to be distributed amongst the three former communities. And then we have some support through a number of staff, including Christina Hebert, who has recently launched a competition amongst the school-aged residents that can come up with a 100th anniversary celebration logo for the event, featuring the feather, which is in both the logo for the town as well as the word mark, and also promoting inclusiveness and diversity. So those are the parameters, and that competition is underway now to come up with a branding for the event. But I think that there has been considerable sensitivity to the matters that you raised, and certainly, as attested by the mayor, has not gone without discussion at the task force table.
Okay. Councillor Jobin and Councillor Houston.
Just to comment as well, in addition, Mark touches on everything. It's going to be inclusive of the entire municipality and all of its grand interests, the agricultural, the Sandwich South Fire Department and its historical members and the history there. It's going to be inclusive. Imagine if it was exclusive of Sandwich South or Maidstone or St. Clair Beach. So it's going to be an inclusive celebration, bringing everyone together and celebrating at this time. And those, it's going to be inclusive is all I can just say. And I can't just express that more. Thank you.
Councillor Houston.
Thank you. And through you to Paul, I know Councillor Dowie just mentioned a little bit about the carnival, and it may be too early because I know plans are still ongoing, but aside from the carnival, are there any other Corn Festival events which we're looking to pull into the 100th anniversary, like the parade or any other aspects, or maybe it's just too early for us to discuss because we haven't finalized those?
Actually, I'll help you out there, Paul. If I could, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Houston, there will be a report with the assistance of Kerry Rice. There will be a report coming to council on November 9th that lays out all of the events that are planned for the 3-day period in July. And there is not actually a carnival midway component to it. However, there are some very tantalizing events, a lot of family fun events, and we will be providing that to you on November 9th agenda. So stay tuned. It's I'm sure it'll be pleasing to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know if Councillor Tonio says it's going to be a party, it's going to be a party. So
There'll be a lot of cake and a lot of good family fun, and be ready, and you'll be needing running shoes for sure because it's going to be action packed from morning, noon, and evening. Okay. So you prepared to move the report, Councillor Tony, and I have support, Councillor Houston. On the report, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to 5.A, and that's the Planning and Building Services, the Financial Incentive Program Grant Application. That's Tecumseh Road Main Street Community Improvement Plan. also known as 12300 Tecumseh Road, Planning, Design, Architectural Grant Program and Residential Grant Program. And I'd like to call upon our the Manager of Planning Services, Mr. Jeffries, to summarize the report and bring the recommendation forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attachment 1A, please. So the town is in receipt of applications for funding through the Tecumseh Road Community Improvement Planning Area Financial Incentive Program related to 12300 Tecumseh Road, which is shown here in yellow within the limits of the Tecumseh Road Community Improvement Plan area, which is outlined in red. Next attachment, please. This shows the detail of the site. It's on the northeast corner of Les Bronce Road and Tecumseh Road intersection, which is a very critical intersection in the context of achieving the objectives of the Tecumseh Road Community Improvement Plan. The property includes an existing vacant building, which is roughly 2,600 square feet in area on the north side of it, adjacent the Via Rail right-of-way, as well as a 4,800 square foot building on the south portion of the property that currently contains some commercial uses on the ground floor, as well as 2 residential units on the second story. The owner, who happens to be the owner of the Carrots and Date restaurant, is in the initial stages of a multi-staged redevelopment of the site that includes the demolition of that northerly building and its replacement with a parking area and landscaping. And the interior renovations to the 2 residential units on the second story of the existing building on the south, as well as improvements to the building facade and a commercial addition on the second story. And if you turn it to attachment 2, you'll see what that looks like. This is an architectural rendering that shows the perspective from the north at the top. You'll see that from the north looking southeast towards Tecumseh Road, you see the parking lot and the facade elements there. And then the bottom picture shows the perspective from someone standing in the middle of the intersection, looking northeast. And again, you can see where the Carrots and Dates restaurant is proposed and the second story addition above that. The 2 residential units are to the west on the southwest corner of that building. I should note that this development will require approval of a site plan control agreement that will be brought forward at a later date to council. At this time, the owner is seeking funding through the program for the preparation of architectural and detailed design drawings related to the redevelopment of the site, as well as funding through the residential grant program, which provides funding up to $20,000 per unit to renovate existing units or add new units. So the owner has therefore submitted a financial incentive program grant application for planning, design, and architectural grant program in the amount of $3,000 and through the residential grant program in the amount of $40,000, which are the maximum amounts through those programs. And they're in accordance with 2 reliable quotes, the preferred of 2 reliable quotes that have been submitted. Town administration supports the applications and recommends that the grant application for the Tecumseh Road Main Street CIP Financial Incentive Program for the property located at 12,300 Tecumseh Road be deemed eligible and approved for the Planning, Design, and Architectural Grant Program, the amount of $3,000 in relation to the preparation of drawings for proposed improvements, renovations, and redevelopment of the subject property. And secondly, for the residential grant program for a total amount of $40,000 towards the costs associated with interior renovations of the 2 existing second floor residential units, all of which is in accordance with section 11.3 sub 5 of the CIP.
All right, thank you very much. Excellent. Questions or comments? It looks outstanding. Deputy Mayor Becchetti, Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey, for bringing that up. That's going to really kickstart our CIP for that whole area. And I applaud the developer there that has made the proposal this evening, and really looking forward to having that, because again, I remember the one development there on Tecumseh Road with Oven 360 and Frank's Brewery. He made a comment. He goes, I could see a future here in the CIP, and we don't need to do it all at once. It takes one development to talk to a friend to invite them to come and develop. And that one friend talks to another friend. And over 2-3 years, you're gonna have 10, 15 businesses, developments. And you see that with the Bourbon and other businesses starting to pop up. And that's when, as a town, we're hitting the road running, no pun intended, that we able to simultaneously support these applicants and show them, look, we are serious about this and we do want to enhance and revitalize that Main Street. So thank you, and keep these type of applications coming forward. I really look forward to seeing that come to fruition.
Councillor Dowie and Councillor Tonio.
Thank you, Worship, and I'll echo some of the comments of the Deputy Mayor. I mean, this is a stunning proposal for that corner and a building that, I mean, looks like it's largely, kept but refined, and that's I'd say the best kind of rehabilitation, because you're not destroying things, you're not affecting the environment through a demolition to the same extent. I know the north building is supposed to be demolished, but this is looks like it's a good adaptive reuse of that building. One question I have, maybe it's more of a curiosity. It's a few years ago there was a car accident on that corner, and as a repair, the brickwork was put back in a different. It's got a different tone and a different texture, and from the renderings, it looks like that's going to be undone, and the original style of brick would be replaced. So I just wanted to confirm that is the case with this grant application.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, the architect that the proponent is using didn't share that knowledge with us. It might be some sort of incentive for the design, but I don't know what's informing that design. What we can tell you is that it meets the design guidelines of the community improvement plan, and that we're very pleased with this redevelopment as well.
So I guess supplementary, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Chad, thank you for that. So if indeed ultimately the rendering is what it is, and the architectural designs will go back to staff for confirmation that it's close enough, as close as is manageable for compliance with the CIP. It's destined to go back to staff, and those discussions would be had ultimately as through the process. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. In fact, once the architectural renderings are completed, we will review them to make sure that they are in keeping with the CIP guidelines and the detailed drawings are. And at that time, they will be most likely looking to take advantage of the facade improvement grant for roughly $15,000 matching fund. And we will get that information for you and make sure that that's incorporated into the future report.
Okay, thank you. And it looks stunning, and I can't wait to see this happen.
I'll pass that along to the proponent.
Councillor Tonio.
Thank you to you, Mr. Mayor. It looks great. I love it. I love the fact they're adding some parking in the back there to accommodate the businesses and apartments upstairs. I don't know if it's now or site specific time. Turning movements in and out are going to be an issue with the tracks and things. I'm sure that'll be discussed when we do the site specific planning.
Mr. Mayor, the turning movements will be improved because the single access to that parking lot will be farther away than the double access that the site has right now. And I should add that they have received approval from the railway through VIA to utilize a portion, to continue to utilize a portion of the railway right-of-way for parking purposes. A very minor portion, but nonetheless, they have received that approval.
Thank you. That was going to be my next question, is the conversation with CN. All right, thank you very much. It looks great. And as Councillor Dowie had mentioned, it would be nice to see some of those bricks, the old bricks from the area, be put into the design a little bit. Maybe you can bring that forward to the architect.
Definitely will.
The other thing, Mr. Jeffries, too, and to members of council, is that CN, if you recall, Transport Canada, we got that $1.2 million grant, and going to be starting next year, where that crossing is going to be kind of leveled off, and so that building and that new transformation on that crossing is going to be really attractive, and just 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was in your office, Madam CAO, and with planning and saying, we got to do something about that building. And here we are. I'm excited because that, to me, is, with our park head across the street, the church. And then your next report is another exciting project that's coming. So that whole intersection is really starting to really, as the deputy mayor said, that's our gateway into town, and it's amazing that transformation that it'll be there. So it's all good stuff. So on the report, moved by Councilor Tonio, supported by Councilor Houston. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Okay, I guess we're ready for bylaws, Madam Clerk.
Actually, one more planning report there, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it's funny, it's how it's laid out on my sheet. It all looks like one, but you're probably right. Yeah, I did speak about it. That's the one across the street.
Correct.
Go ahead. It's also a financial incentive program grant application. Mr. Jeffries.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you noted, this is in close proximity to the one that council just approved, but for different funding programs. This is located on the northeast corner of Legion Lane and L'Esperance Road. And again, it's highlighted in yellow, and that shows it in the context of the community improvement plan area. This is a more detailed photo of the site. Shows the parking area that it's proposed to be improved, as well as the 3,800 square foot law office. It's the Hollowell and Seguin LLP law office. They've received grant for the planning, design, and architectural works related to this back in February of 2020. And they've now completed those drawings. And if you turn to attachment 2A and 2B, you'll see the results of that. So this shows the proposed facade improvements from different perspectives. And then the next attachment shows the site plan and how the parking lot related to this building is proposed to be improved. And the improvements to the parking area include resealing the asphalt and delineating parking spaces, the removal of the westerly access to the parking. There are currently 2 access points here. And we negotiated with the proponent to remove the westerly one to reduce the potential for conflict between Legion Lane, that access point, and Tecumseh Road. They're also adding a decorative aluminum fencing along the southerly edge of the parking area along Legion Lane to better delineate that. So, and adding some landscaping along the westerly limits of it as well. So the owner is seeking funding for the building facade improvement grant program in the amount of $15,000, and for the parking area improvement grant program in the amount of $10,000. We've received 2 reliable quotes, and based on those quotes, administration is recommending that the grant application for the Tecumseh Road Main Street Community Improvement Plan Financial Incentive Program for this property be deemed eligible and approved for the building facade improvement grant in the amount of $15,000. And the parking area improvement grant program in the amount of $10,000 in relation to building facade and parking lot improvements for the subject property, all of which is in accordance with section 11.3 sub 5 of the CIP and with PBS 2021-48. Mr. Mayor, that's my summary. I'm open to any questions that council may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jeffries. Any questions or comments? Councilor Dowie?
Thank you, Worship. Just another exciting project. This is certainly a lot of asphalt here, and this is going to be very transformative for the area. And it's a very, it's a very important building for our town's history. And so seeing it just continue to develop as a landmark and it getting better and better is just great to see.
All right, any further questions or comments? Councilor Tonio?
Thank you. I just want to mention, good job on identifying the two different parking lots, because I know we've always had troubles in the past with the OPP and issues of people parking on that private, thinking and it belongs to the church or the town. So it's a good option while they're doing it is to identify the two lots as different. So good job on that. Great idea. I love it. I love the building coming in there. That's where Puerto Rico's restaurant was supposed to go one day. That's where I want to put my restaurant if I ever open one. I thought it was a perfect spot, but a great building and glad it's coming in town. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Moved by Councilor or Deputy Mayor. Do you want to move that? And supported by Councilor Tonio. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Okay, bylaws. I think we're on the bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this evening we have bylaw number 2021-82. This is to authorize the signing of a transfer payment agreement under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program COVID-19 Local Government Intake Stream Projects. Bylaw number 2021-83 is a bylaw to authorize the signing of a site plan control amending agreement with Kajopa Investments, Inc., previously reported on to council. Bylaw number 2021-84 is a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement with the Stephanie and Barry Zeckelman Foundation on naming rights for the pickleball at Lacoste Park, which was reported on at the last meeting of council. And we have finally bylaw 2021-85, which authorizes the signing of the lease agreement with the Tecumseh Pickleball Association, which was also reported on at the last meeting of council. We're respectfully asking for first and second readings of these bylaws, and if appropriate, third and final.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Two readings. Moved by Councilor Tonio, Councilor Jobin, support. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And then three readings are now proper. Councilor Houston and Councilor Tonio. All in favor? Opposed, carried. We'll move on to unfinished business. Okay, we'll move over to new business, and I'd like to ask our Director of Parks and Recreation, Mr. Anthony, just a report on HVAC unit.
Yes, Mayor McNamara, members of council, we had a failure of the HVAC unit at the Public Works Water Administration building last week when we turned on the unit for heating. The heat exchanger was not working and the unit needs to be replaced. So under the emergency replacement, we want to ensure staff are working in a proper setting and have heat as the weather's turning colder. We've authorized Volmer to replace it with a unit. It's a high energy efficient unit, and it's the highest rated MERV filtration system we could put into it without affecting the performance of the unit. It's a MERV 13. This is just a verbal report. You will receive a report next week, a written report or next council meeting, sorry, to update you as per the requirements of the purchasing policy. But I wanted to let you know in advance that we had to move on this. It was an unbudgeted item, something that was unforeseen, but something that needed to be addressed right away.
All right, thank you for the report, and gotta have heat. Okay, any further new business? Okay. If not, then a motion to confirm the proceedings of our meeting this evening. Councilor Tonio. Councilor Jobin, support, all in favor. Opposed, that is carried. Any notices of motion, members of council? None at this time. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, November 9th. We'll have a 5:30 start, public council meeting. That's a plan of subdivision. That's the old Castle Heights. 6:30 quarter revision. That's McLean Hergot drain and a sear drain. And then we'll follow that with our 7 o'clock regular council meeting. So without any further business, then certainly adjournment is now in order. Deputy Mayor Bichetti, Councilor Tonio, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And so our business is now over. So I bid you all a good evening. Thank you for participating. And for those who have been streaming from comforts at home, thank you for joining us this evening. And until we meet again, stay safe, and we'll gather again November 9th. Good night.